And professors and my fellow students, please remember to stay muted and keep your camera turned off if you are not asking a question. So for tech support, you can send us messages via the public chat for assistance. The seminar is about to begin. Honorable guests, esteemed professors, and my fellow students, welcome to join the seminar series held by the College of Business and School of Law. I'm Lucas, a year 3 student majoring in computational finance and financial technology from the College of Business. It's my pleasure to be your master of ceremony for today's event. On behalf of CTU, I would like to welcome all of you to this seminar series. The joint seminar aims to facilitate innovative idea exchange between professors and students across different faculties and areas of study. Students are encouraged to think outside the box through engaging with emerging technologies to create innovative solutions for the sustainable future. So today we are extremely fortunate to have Dr. Lauren Yu-Hsin to deliver the seminar. Dr. Lin is an associate professor at the City University of Hong Kong School of Law. Her research focuses on corporate law and governance. Today, Dr. Lin's talk is titled China's Corporate Social Credit System and the Dawn of Surveillance State Capitalism. Chinese state capitalism is transitioning towards a panoptic technology-assisted variant that we call surveillance state capitalism. The mechanism driving the emergence of this variant is China's corporate social credit system, which stands for the CSCS, a big data project to evaluate the trustworthiness of all business entities registered in the country. The CSCS is linked to a system of corporate rewards and punishments, representing a futuristic strategy of automated screening to determine which enterprises are allowed market access and benefits. So in this paper, we provide the first empirical analysis of the CSCS scoring system based on its recent rollout in Zhejiang province, one of the first to implement the CSCS at the local level. A key finding is that while the CSS is facially neutral means of measuring legal compliance, politically connected firms can receive high overall scores in Zhejiang. The channel for this result is a social responsibility category that valorizes awards from the government and a contribution to the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, and sanctioned to receive the higher overall scores, although highly leveraged firms subject to higher default risk. So while our findings based on the first available score from a single province have clear limitation, they provide an early window into the design characteristics, operation, and potentially far-reaching implication of the CSCS for the country as a whole. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Lim, please.
Okay, thank you, Lucas, for the very detailed introduction. So I'm very honored to be able to speak in this forum, and I'm really looking forward to learn more from our colleagues from business school as well. So let me share my screen first. Okay. So to get started, as Lucas just introduced, the topic of today is about the corporate social credit system in China. So as many of you may have heard of the social credit system in mainland China, is where everyone will get a score based on your performance in the society. However, I think last discussion has been made, in relation to the corporate, in relation to the social credit system for corporations. As the corporate social credit system is still under development, in this paper, we aim to present to you the first available social credit scores that's available in Zhejiang province as an empirical study. To understand how the system works and what are the potential impact of the social credit system. So in addition to that, I want to introduce a new term, surveillance state capitalism, coined by me and my co-author, Curtis Milham, from Stanford Law School, to describe the Chinese state capitalism after the implementation of the corporate social credit system. So, so what exactly is a social credit system? Social credit system is an overall assessment on the behavior of human and corporations that operated in the society. So to borrow the word from the Tribune report, it's a complex, sweeping, and government-wide initiative that reaches into every sector of the economy, touches upon issues such as data, corporate regulation, finance, consumer advocacy, and geopolitics. So the guiding rule is the planning outline for the construction of a social credit system 2014 to 2020. Now, even though the planning outline give us a year, the 4 years period to build the system, but actually the system is still under development, and there's some slowdown in the implementation due to the hit of pandemic. So the subjects that could apply social credit system actually encompass all the players in the market or in the society. That includes individuals, enterprises, meaning corporations, and including business, right? And also government agencies. So local governments are also subject to the review, as well as the social organizations. So what exactly is corporate social credit system? So corporate social credit system is a program that amass data, that means collect data on regulatory compliance, on government inspections, on the record of payments of taxes and court judgments, and also the civic conduct of the business registered in China. And from there, they will generate a public available social credit profiles that can be relied upon by the government and also maybe by the market participants as well to decide rewards and punishment. So that comes with the consequence of rewards and punishment, maybe defined by the government or defined by whoever want to rely on the social credit profiles. So the meaning of social credit. The meaning of social credit, literally, it means trustworthiness, right? Or for companies, more of compliance with your obligations, but instead of loyalty to the Chinese Communist Party. So it should be a neutral assessment on compliance or trustworthiness that we say. However, the line between law and politics is blurred in China, especially with omnipresence of CCP in all institutions and every facets of the society. So trustworthiness, in fact, is determined on the basis of the analysis of big data in the hands of the party states. So that arises some concerns, right? Where we think, and as we show later with our data, that we think that with the implementation of corporate social credit system, the Chinese state capitalism is actually shifting or moving towards what we call the surveillance state capitalism. So what do we mean by surveillance state capitalism? Now, there's no doubt that China is building the largest surveillance state, with 54% of the surveillance camera situated in China. And the Chinese government also would like to use big data and AI analysis to enhance what they call the data-driven governance. So corporate social credit system can be seen as a component of China's tech-driven monitoring and surveillance initiative. So in addition to that, we also inspire from the term coined by a Harvard professor, Shoshana Zuboff, in 2019 about surveillance capitalism. So what she meant by surveillance capitalism is a capitalism that usually exercised by these high-tech companies, for example, Google and Facebook, to commodify human behavior for private gains. or private profit with the help of big data analysis. So these firms basically, they own a lot of data because human individuals interact with their platform. So they collect a lot of those data and they actually make profit out of it. So combining this concept, we create a new term, surveillance state capitalism, which we believe to better describe the future of Chinese capitalism, where behavior is amassed and analyzed, but not for profit, not like surveillance capitalism, but in service of the party state's objective, including market behavior modification, industrial policy support, and maybe party fealty. So what exactly is corporate social credit system and how does it work? It's an overall assessment on the corporation's credit or trustworthiness. So they create what they call the social credit profile, where they contain two parts of the information. One is what we call the public credit information, and the other is market credit information. So public credit information are information generated from the data that, from the interaction between the companies and government agencies. So for example, if your company, register your data with the government agency, or you didn't comply with the government rule and you got sanctioned or penalty from the government agency. So if you receive administrative penalty, that will be a negative information, or you get blacklisted by government agency. And that could also include positive information. So that includes rewards, if you get rewards from government, or you get red listed from the government. Okay, so that constitute what they call the public credit information. And each province locally has to conduct a public credit evaluation in order to assess and come up with the scoring standards of the public credit information about an assessment about the companies. So the other part is market credit information. That, of course, from the data generated by the interaction between the companies and market participants. So that might include consumer complaints or ratings done by industry associations or even third-party credit rating agencies. But as I mark this part in gray, that means that actually this part is still very much under development. So most of the data that we're able to find online and now is available are public credit information. But when the system is in its full implementation, we should be able to include, the market credit information should be included in the whole social credit profile. So there are some websites that are available right now for companies or even individuals to search for their social credit profiles. Now, the most complete or famous one would be the Credit China website that's maintained by the NDRC. There you can enter the name of the company or their social credit unification identifier to search for their information. So as you can see, that includes individual credit, industry credit, and even the city credit. So every player in the society will have a profile, okay, on this website. But of course, I'm not saying that the information on this website is complete as of now, because it's still under construction. So a lot of information are not actually very complete, but it's underway. Now, the other website is the National Credit Information Sharing Platform. That's maintained by, again, NDRC and State Council that mainly provides blacklisted entities information. Another one is the National Enterprise Credit Information Publicity System, maintained by the SAMR, that's the State Administration for Market Regulation. So this website also contains the social credit profiles for all business registered in China. So these are the platforms that are available where the public can access the information. So what are the use of this social credit profiles? There are many possible applications, and actually Chinese government intend to have a wide application of this social credit profile. Now it can be relied on by the regulators to decide whether to grant market access to certain entities, or by regulators to decide how to deploy their resources. And that can also be relied on the financial institutions to conduct a financial risk assessment. And where that is usually the case in Western societies, that includes, financial credit assessment. But social credit is broader than the Western system. So that can also be relied on the general public as well. So it has a broad application, or at least intended to have a broad application. Now, currently, as I mentioned, the implementation of corporate social credit system has been slowed down because of the pandemic. Currently, every province focuses on the building of public credit information, including, information collection. They had to do an evaluation, and also they have to come up with the scoring standards for evaluation. So specific tasks including collect those information and construct a database for each province to publicize the result of public credit evaluation. So the application of public credit evaluation is quite broad, but mainly they want to use this big data to enhance government service. So the ramification of public credit evaluation is that the firms will be categorized into different levels based on the results and subject to what we call the credit score-based supervision. 信用分级分类监管. Okay, so highly rated companies will be subject to less supervision, while if you rate low in the system, then you will be warned and subject to a heightened supervision by the local government agency. So that's the consequences of getting a low grade in this assessment. So this graph shows you the development of social credit systems. So as I mentioned, it's still a work in progress. So as here you can see, the darker the color is, that means that more documents has been published in this province in relation to social credit. So you can see that, it seems that if it's economically more developed region, they tend to publish more documents. So for example, here, Sichuan, Zhejiang, Jiangsu publish most documents. That means they are more advanced in the development of the provincial level social credit system. So there is regional differences in the development. And that's partly why we choose Zhejiang as a study, as a province for study. Now, as I mentioned, every province is now focused on public credit assessment or public credit evaluation. Now, the status being that a lot of the provinces have already published relevant regulations, but they haven't come up with the scoring standards about how to do the assessment. Okay, so from a survey, we only found like 9 provinces. 9 provinces already published specific scoring standards. But however, there are only 2 provinces, Shandong and Zhejiang, have already complete the assessment and assign a score and rating for every enterprise registered in the province. And Zhejiang is the only province actually that publicize the results, where the public can just enter the name of the company to search for the results. So that's why our study focused on Zhejiang province, and to investigate the public credit scores and the ratings and what are the determinants of these scores. So the sources, we download the scores from Zhejiang Province government website last year in July. And the sample firms being all the Asian listed companies headquartered in Zhejiang. So we have 531 firms. The credit scores ranges from 0 to 1,000 according to the regulation published by Zhejiang Province. So there are 5 ratings. So if you got a score over 850, then you will be ranked excellent. And if you got a score lower than 700, then you will be ranked poor. So according to the regulation of Zhejiang Province, if you're ranked fair or poor in the ratings, then you will be subject to more intense government inspections. Okay. And that's part of the exercise of the credit score-based supervision. So what exactly is the scoring standards? So how do Zhejiang Province evaluate these companies? So as I mentioned, the total score is 1,000. It composed of 5 parts. Okay. Compliance accounts for 450, almost half of the score. Social responsibility, 185. Finance and taxation, 195. Governance, 90 marks. And basic data accounts for 80. Now, what are the details? There are detailed indicators of each component. So for first one, basic data, as I mentioned, counts for 80 marks, right? So that includes information about whether your key personnel has been listed as a serious dishonest person, or key personnel has failed to satisfy court judgment, or the company has been announced as a, have an abnormal business operation. So for finance and taxation, actually, they're not looking at your, whether you make money or not. Actually, they're looking at whether you did not satisfy court judgment relating to financing, or you're engaging in criminal liability relating to financing. Is there a debt evasion? So these are more of like compliance, right? And whether you pay your tax, social insurance payment. The third part, governance, accounts for 90 marks. That includes 3 main parts: product quality, product safety, and environmental protection. So they're mainly looking into whether there's bad records from government supervision and inspection, or has it the factory have engaging there are some environmental accidents happen before. Okay, so these are sort of things that they look at, and they assign detailed weightings for each category. So that's how they come up with the score for each company. So part 4 is about compliance. That includes, mostly deal with administrative penalties. So whether you are subject to administrative enforcement, and also the judicial records, whether you did not satisfy court judgment, or have you had other criminal records, and have you been listed as a serious dishonest person under the list published by the government. The 5th part is more interesting. That is the social responsibility part. That accounts for 185. So that includes 2 parts. One is charity, the other is honesty record. Now for charity, that includes, whether you make donations, but not donate to any entity, but only donations. They only recognize donations to, for example, Red Cross or other government sanctioned charity organization, or whether you have engaged in volunteer services. For example, again, these services has been sanctioned by the state. So for example, whether you help the poor, you support social activities, or participate in the rescue activities. Now, the honesty records include red-listed records, and also whether you got honors or awards from the government agencies. So there's a lot of information to digest, but these are the standards. And next, I want to show you one of the examples of how we get data from the website. So in the Credit China website, Zhejiang province website, you can simply enter the name of the company, or there is a unified social credit identifier for each company, assigned to each company for social credit purposes. So then when you search for the company, then come up with the results like this. So on top is the company name and the unified social credit identifier, which is pretty long. And then you had a score. That's the score for the public credit assessment score. Okay, public credit evaluation score. So according to the standards that we see, this company, Zhejiang Meili, got 809 scores. Okay, so the ratings belongs to good. Okay, because it's under 850 but above 800. Okay, so we have 5 ratings. Now, in addition to that, you can also get information. These are the social credit profiles that we talk about. Now, we can also get information on the basic information of the company. For example, who is the legal representative, the registered capital, when is the company established, and whether it's in business or not, what's the business range, business scope. And also we can also see information on, administrative approvals that this company receive. In addition to that, we can also have got information on, red list, honors, award, that positive information about the company. For example, here, this company received an 8-level taxpayer award. So that would contribute to the scores or the marks in the last section, right? The social responsibility section, where they receive a red list from government agency. Now, they also contain blacklist or penalties, those kind of negative information. So here, administrative penalty, this company received an administrative penalty. That's why he didn't, this company did not rank, excellent, right? They got deducted of some marks in this respect. Okay, so we collect the scores from the website of the 531 firms headquartered in Zhejiang. And this is a distribution of the ratings and scores. So as you can see, the ratings actually 74% of the firms rated excellent, right? What a surprise, right? Like everyone do very well here. And only less than around 2% rated as fair or poor. That will be subject to intensified government inspection, right? So that means, most of the Zhejiang listed companies do well in the exercise. And maybe that's because, Zhejiang is a very well-developed economic region, and with famous companies, like Alibaba Group, and it's a very developed economic region. So maybe that's why the companies there do well. But I'm not sure. We're not sure if the companies in other regions, also perform that well. About the distribution of the scores, we have 531 observations. So the mean score is 864. It's also in the range of excellent. Okay, so the mean score actually falling to the excellent rating. And from the 5 subcategories, actually the top 4, there's not a lot of variations in the top 4 parts. For example, for the first one, the full mark is 80 and the mean being 79. Okay, and the mean for finance and taxation is almost 190 out of 195. And the mean for governance, again, almost 89 out of 90. But then if you look at the last row, social responsibility. So the mean score is only 70 out of 185. It seems that the most variations comes from social responsibility. And the minimum score is 0, the maximum being 150. So no one received full marks. Now, you need to know that actually the way that they calculate the marks in social responsibility is somewhat different from others. So for others, actually you start from the full marks and then you got deducted when you receive a negative information, right? Now, if you receive a negative record, you got deducted. But for social responsibility part, it's mostly reflecting your positive behavior. So it starts from 0, and then you add up the marks once you have a positive record. Okay, so that maybe that partly explains why there's huge variations from social responsibility. Now I use the graph to show what we have seen in the summary statistics. So the rating, as we can see, 74% rated very high in Zhejiang. And we also want to look at the percentage mark that the company gets, in each subcategory. So from here, we calculate the percentage mark. That means the average mark and divided by the full marks, the full, mark in this category. So as you can see, the mean score in percent is the lowest in social responsibility. It's only 38.25%. So that means on average, the firms in our sample got 38.25% of the score in social responsibility. So this suggests that maybe in the future, the firms can actually boost up their scores by doing more in the social responsibility part. For example, to engage more in volunteer services, to donate more to those designated charity organizations, or try to get relisted by the government agency, or try to get rewards or awards from the government agency. So this suggests the largest future payoff to effort can be found in these activities, and that has a huge impact on corporate behavior. Maybe if the companies cares about their scores, they might want to do something to improve their scores, and this is where they should start, right? If we're opening a consulting firm, then we should ask them, you should start from here, because in other parts you already score very high, almost 90%, right? Or over 90%. Now, if we look at the second level indicators, again, charity only receive 1.25. So firms on average only receive 1.25% of the scores in charity, and they only receive less than 60% in honesty records. Okay, so again, like I said, this is the parts that have the most, it's most promising for companies to boost up their score in the future. Now, in addition to looking at the descriptive statistics of the score, we also want to know the determinants of corporate social credit scores, because for two things, in theory, it could test what does trustworthiness or social credit means in the context of China, right? And it's also important for practice as well, because that provides insight into the potential effects of corporate social credit system on firm behavior and economic performance. So what we do is we conduct a ordinarily squared regression, OLS regression, on total score and also on subscores. The independent variable we choose includes 4 parts. First, corporate governance, and we look at corporate finance. We also look at the formal linkages with the party states, state ownership or party fealty. And lastly, we'll also look at political connections. I will explain in details what are the specific variables that we use later. We also include control variables, include firm size, firm age, and book to market ratio to control the differences between firms. And we also include fixed effect, industry and city fixed effect. So for independent variables, first thing that we want to test is really, because the system is ostensibly about legal compliance, right? So in theory, firms with good corporate governance should score higher in this exercise. So we use percentage of independent directors as a proxy for corporate governance. Okay, so we conjecture that firms with better corporate governance should receive higher scores. Now, this exercise also has relation with financial condition of the company. Okay, but in the sense that not that, in the sense of, firms that are more highly leveraged, so they borrow more money, they are in a higher debt level, or less profitable firms, they should have a higher probability of default on debts, right? That they are less likely or less capable of paying debts, and potentially less capable to satisfy court judgments. So in this respect, we expect that firms with higher leverage ratio and lower return on assets, ROA, ratio will have a higher leverage than lower scores. Okay. The third category that we want to look at is state ownership and party fealty. So we consider that because, as we mentioned, this is an exercise actually pretty much stipulated, and the scoring standards are decided by the government. So we want to see that whether having a formal linkages with the government, for example, your SOE, state-owned enterprise, or the firm government has a higher percentage of shareholding in this firm, will have an impact on the score. Now we include three variables. One is SOE dummy, second is percentage of state shareholding, and the third one is party building dummy, which we coded a company as one if the company actually amend the articles to be in compliance with the party building policy. So the party building policy was a policy that announced by CCP in 2015, which really took effect, take the heat from 2017 to 2018, where the CCP requires all SOEs to amend their articles to include party committees. So to give party committees a formal role in the corporate governance of the company. Now, if the company amend the articles to include party committee in the formal corporate governance mechanism, then we code it as one for this company. Okay, so in addition to all this, we feel that formal linkages might not be enough to catch all the possible influences on the score. Now, political connection has been used in many finance studies in the Chinese studies. So past studies have documented the link between political connection and a lot of economic, legal, and political outcomes. For example, the likelihood of listing the shares on Chinese stock market, and the firms with political connection, we conjecture that firms with political connection might score higher in the exercise. So following previous literature, we define political connection as whether the corporate executive has served in certain government or party position at or above certain rank, that is the division rank of level of the government ranking. So if yes, then we code it as 1. If no, then we code it as 0. Okay, so the summary statistic again, because the political connection data, we actually gathered that from a database that only have the latest the data until 2018 April. So we only include 414 firms at the end that with the political connection data into the regression. So the mean score, again, 162 is roughly the same as the previous exercise. And here we can see that the mean score for percentage of independent directors is 37%. So it's 30%, 37% of, the firm on average have, roughly 1/3 of the members are independent directors. Here, if you look at the dummy for SOE, we can see that around 15% of the firms are SOEs. And that's consistent with our impression with Zhejiang, right? Zhejiang being a province with mostly private companies and small and medium enterprises. And the average percentage state shareholding is only 1%. But however, 25% of the firms has already responded to the party building reform. So that means 25% of the sample firms that we examine have already amended their articles to include party committees in the formal corporate governance mechanism. And 54% of the firm has at least one CEO or director having political connection. Okay, so this is the summary statistics, and then I will introduce you our results on regression. So this is the regression results on the total scores. So as you can see, the column 1, we only run on the corporate governance variable, column 2 for financial condition, column 3 on the formal linkages with the party states, and column 4 on political connection. And if you look at column 5, we include all the variables in column 5. So here it seems that the score is not correlated with corporate governance, okay? And it appears that it's negatively correlated with the leverage ratio. So that means highly leveraged firms with more debts, then they do worse in the score. They receive lower scores, okay? So almost like if your leverage ratio is lower by 1%, then increase by 1%, then you lose 50 marks. For SOE, here it seems that the SOE, being SOE has an advantage. But however, the effect goes away in model 5, where we control for all the variables. So it seems that the formal linkages with the state does not matter in this exercise. However, political connection matters and has a positive impact on the score. That means political connected firms receive higher score in the exercise. And to further investigate into why do firms, why do political connected firms receive higher score, or which part of the subcategories that contribute to the significance. So we run second regression on the first level subscores in 5 categories: basic data, finance, taxation, governance, compliance, and social responsibility. Now, it appears that as we expected, the percentage of independent directors actually highly correlated with compliance score, but somehow the significance goes away if you for the total score regression. Okay, and leverage ratio continue to be negatively correlated with basic data, finance, and taxation. That's makes sense, and also compliance. So in compliance, we know that the standard being that there might be compliance are in relation to administrative penalties, failure to satisfy court judgments, and whether your company has been listed as serious dishonest entities. So it seems that highly leveraged firms are more likely to be penalized, by administrative penalty, or will not be able to satisfy the court judgments. And here, percentage of state shareholding seems to positively correlate with compliance, and SOEs did better in the basic data. So it seems that the more shares that the state owns, that means they keep better records, and they do better in compliance. And finally, the political connection actually is only significantly correlated with social responsibility marks. So that means actually the reason for political connected firms to score higher not comes from better compliance or better governance or better, finance and all that, but actually comes from, from acting good by doing more donation or participating in more volunteer services or receive more awards from the government. Okay, and that's a very interesting finding. Okay, that's a very interesting finding, and potentially has implications for what should we look at, or how do we assess the effectiveness of the system. So a summary of my findings. Corporate social credit system, as we said, is facially neutral. Okay, it's supposed to just measure legal compliance and civic behavior. However, so we find that better governed firms score higher in compliance, highly leveraged firms subject to higher default risk, and associated with lower total scores. Formal connection does not seem to matter. However, political connection matters. And it's possible that because political connected firms are best equipped to navigate through the system of rewards and punishment that are set by the party states. And our findings also support the potential for behavioral modification because of the social responsibility marks, the section that part actually follows the CCP policy priority. And there's a high payoff to effort potential to boost the score in the future. So it's possible that firms, if you want to boost up score, you will have to do more in social responsibility part. Now, our findings, of course, have clear limitations because this is just the early score, the first score, announced by Zhejiang province that hopefully in the future we'll be able to look at more provinces and to get more data to more correctly assess the implications and impact of the system. So going back to my point on surveillance state capitalism, so we think that there is, it appears like from the scoring standards, we can see that there is a potential for policy channeling through the scoring systems because each government, local government can set the scoring standards and they can actually embed it, any policy priority in the scores, right? So that could have a potential to nudge corporate behavior to align the policy goal set by the party states. And for example, the local government can include, for example, COVID-19 related blacklist and to factor that into the scores. So that can be changed anytime by the local government in response to changes in the national level policy priorities. And that's why we said we linked these two concepts together, and we think that maybe surveillance state capitalism is a better term to describe Chinese state capitalism after the adoption of the corporate social credit system. So my presentation ends here, and I welcome questions and discussions. Thank you.
Yeah, Lauren, I have a quick question. And Lauren, this is Jumbo from EF department. I have a quick question.
Okay,
Yeah, okay. Your regression, your analysis, what's the determinant of this kind of the score, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it seems in your table, you only have, this is the one-time score, right?
Yes.
Do you have the time series number?
Not yet. We're still collecting the time series scores, but this is just one time. Yeah.
Just one time. Okay. Also in the regression, you put lots of this kind of like the firm level financial number ratio, like leverage, ROE, so on and so forth. Did you use the lag for those kind of leverage, for those kind of financial variables?
Actually, we use the end of 2020 data.
End of 2020 data, but the score is based on your result. You see,
in July 2021. Yeah.
Because I read this one because in your regression, it seems none of the variables are significant. Only very few of them are significant, no matter for the whole score or for some sub-scores. So I'm thinking why those variables do not have the explanation power. So the reason may be like the score, I'm not sure the score is based on what kind of information they give the score, right?
You mean?
Yeah, like this table.
Firm size is significant.
No, firm size is
variables or?
Yeah, only firm size. Yeah, the firm size for the next slides for the sub-score. You see, for the sub-score.
Or I didn't present the the results for control variables here, but are you referring to ROA or because leverage is significant?
Like from finance side, for example, the governance. The percentage of independent director. This one, you see, this one should be significant affect the corporate governance. You have more independent directors, the corporate governance should be better. But you see here, the coefficient is negative, it's not significant.
Actually here, let me explain. So the governance here is not really what we call the corporate governance. It's just the scoring standards set by the, let me show you the scoring standards. What does it mean by governance? It's not the corporate governance that we usually imagine. So here this is the standard. So the governance here, it's just a translation from the regulation. So governance here really means, whether you got bad records from government inspection on your product quality, on your product safety, and also whether there is environmental accidents.
Okay, in fact, my question is
okay.
Since most of the variables are not significant, I'm thinking, you see here the score when the agent they give this kind of score, they based on some information, but this information maybe is already lagged. But when you get the score, for example, you get the score at July 2021,
yes,
July 2021. But when you see here the agent, when they collect the information, they do the assessment, then they give the score. So those information may not use the end of the 2020 data. Maybe they use like the past 5 years, start from 2016 to 2020, 2019, something like that. So I'm thinking if you only use the end of the 2020 data, that's maybe the reason why most of the variables are not significant. They don't have any explanation power. So maybe this is just my guess, okay? So maybe when they give the score and then they do the assessment, based on the data is already like 2 years, 3 years, or past several years data. And then I'm not sure, okay. Maybe you should dig out how based on what kind of information, based on what kind of data, then they can give the score.
Okay, so of course, thank you for the question. So it's possible that there's a lag in reporting. Of course, we have no guarantee on that. But I think because I'm continue to collect the panel data every month, so it seems that scores has been changed. So according to the regulation, they need to update the scores every month. But of course, it could be that there's a delay reporting from the government agency, but it's at least as far as I know, they update the scores every month. But because we don't really have enough, data yet, it's only 1 year, or a little bit less than 1 year. So I couldn't do panel regression here, but we will keep an eye on whether it's most up to date. For example, here, like if you look at this A-level taxpayer, at least here it shows that it's 2020 data. So it's not that old. At least it's not like 4 or 5 years old data. That's what I can say here. Yeah.
Yeah, this is just based on your result. I have this kind of comment for your reference, because it seems to me like if the rating agency to give the score, they not only based on like for 1 year's data, and based on maybe based on some long history, right? This is based on your OL's regression. Most of the verbal are not significant. So it's I believe in the future, if you submit the paper to journals, and then maybe the referee will reach this one. If the verbals are not significant, they don't have the explanation power, then what's the reason why you put the verbal there? I don't know. Okay, my suggestion is maybe you can try. You can try to get the time series data, and then maybe use a longer history data.
Yeah.
You can using the history average or something like that, and try to see if you can get some significant results.
Yeah, that's also something that I want to do by collecting the but because this is too new, like they only just released the result in 2021, so we need some time to collect the data and accumulate and to form the panel time series data. But thank you very much. It's a very good suggestion and observation. So Julia?
Hello, thank you. That was really interesting. I have a few questions.
So there is a little bit lag.
I was wondering, oh, what? Oh, shoot, let me.
Yeah. Now I can hear you.
Okay, maybe there was a lag. I noticed for was connected, do you think the strength of that effect on social responsibility or on any other factors would change if you excluded independent directors from the political connection variable? And then I was also wondering, in all of your regressions, size didn't have an effect on compliance or on governance, but it did affect, I think, compliance. I was wondering if you had any theories on that, because it seems like it could indicate several things, just that you have money to pay penalties, but you're not necessarily avoiding committing the underlying.
sorry, Julia, your connection is not very good, so I
line
didn't.
offense or better governor. Okay, maybe I can change the connection. Oh, can you hear me any better now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So I was asking if you had any thoughts on the significance of the firm size factor.
Mhm.
And I noted that it didn't actually seem to affect legal compliance in the sense of, well, that which is under the governance category, but it did affect, I think, their compliance category.
Mhm.
And then the other question was, what would happen if you looked just at inside directors and executives for the political connection variable?
So for your first question, so you mean the implication of firm size. So that means that larger firms, here, if you're talking about this regression here, or this one.
Yeah, the second one. Well, both,
Yeah.
but especially the second one.
Yeah, the second one, I didn't show the the result, but I can just briefly say it. So firm size seems to be significant in compliance and also the social responsibility subscores, right? So I think it just means that larger firms, I think it makes sense because larger firms, you tend to have better compliance, and larger firms has more independent directors as well, usually. So it score higher in compliance and social responsibility. I guess larger firms have, usually they're the one that gets, those rewards or awards from the government. But I don't really, does that answer your question about, the effect of firm size?
Yeah. Yeah.
It seems that like larger firm scores better.
Yeah, I was just wondering why that would be, especially if, because I thought there was a slide, never mind. I thought there was one that showed that they didn't have a connection to governance, but I think I misread the slide.
No, yeah. Okay, so about your, what was your second question?
Oh, for the political connection variable, if the effects would change if you didn't include outside directors and just looked at inside directors and executives.
Mm-hmm. We didn't really separate, when we do the coding, we didn't really separate whether they are independent directors or the inside, or we call the inside director, executive directors in that respect. And I'm not sure if that would change the results though, because independent directors, it's independent directors just means that it's independent from the management, right, or the controlling shareholders. And it's possible that they hire an independent director because that independent director has a good connection with the government. As far as I know, like in many construction companies, they would hire someone that's former government officials to be the independent director, because construction company, they especially need some connections or relationships with the government, because they need a lot of government approvals in every project that they do. But that's an interesting question though. When we did the coding, we didn't really separate this two, but I think it could go either way, right? Like, even if you're an independent director, you could be political connected. And that in some company, I can see that that's partly why they want to hire this outsider to be their independent director. So I mean, yeah, is your theory that independent directors are not politically connected, or the other way around?
Sort of maybe the other way around, because like sometimes I mean, I guess in other countries, maybe you appoint independent directors who are members of your creditors or suppliers or some other firm, but the political connections would make sense, especially if you're getting state contracts as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions? So
so if
yeah, it seems that we don't have any more questions.
yeah, okay,
Yes,
then
yeah.
then I will so this is the conclusion of the joint seminar event today. And once again, I would like to express our deepest gratitude towards the generous support and presence of our honorable guests and participants. I would like to thank our guest speaker, Dr. Lin. And thank you all for your participation in this event. And we look forward to seeing your attendance at future events. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And by the way, I have a little question that this credit system can to measure like those companies in China that to make sure it is profitable or not to measure that yeah, such like
Can you, I'm sorry, can you say your question again? You mean can they measure profitability?
yeah, I'm not sure the credit China's corporate social credit system can how does it can correctly to measure the profitability of that company?
No, actually, our results shows that it's not correlated. So like this regression,
Yeah.
it seems that it's not correlated with profitability. So profitability has no effect on the scores, and I think which makes sense because if you look at the criteria for the scores, right, it has nothing to do with the profitability of the company. It's really about compliance and whether you be able to comply with administrative rules or comply with to enforce or honor the court judgment, that sort of compliance. So I think looking at the results, I think it makes sense that it has nothing to do with profitability. But that also raised a concern, if this is something that the company cares about, would that drive company managers to do something just to boost up the score, but drive away their attention from the profit? That's something that we can think about.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is the end of this seminar, and see you all in the next event.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.